Hello everyone again. Second live stream for today, second news update, and whenever I will have a time, I'm gonna adapt this approach, like two live streams, two news updates, one in the morning, one in the afternoon or in the evening, because this way I can share more news, obviously, because otherwise I just have to compromise in order to make. Live streams shorter, I have to choose which news to share. So therefore, whenever I will have opportunity, I will make two live streams a day, maybe more. Once again, thank you all for joining this stream. And well, I have prepared quite a number of news that was reported by Russian media during the day. And without any further delay, let's go through it. Although, let me also notice, dear friends, that after news segment, let's have a little chat for like 15, 20, 30 minutes. After every stream, I think it will be good if we will exchange opinions on the major developments. So from today on, let's keep some 20, 30 minutes for this community chat. That's been said, let's go through some news now, and I'm gonna start with this report from RT, and obviously many other media outlets here in Russia paid attention to this. That, as I reported this morning, Russian president was planning to have a meeting with Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, who arrived in Moscow yesterday evening, and this meeting did take place. Let me give you some details on that. Israeli and US hostilities against Iran are groundless and unjustifiable. Russian President Vladimir Putin has told the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, top Iranian diplomat who landed in Moscow and met with the Russian president on Monday, said earlier that the visit was needed for a closer, more precise, and more serious consultations with Russia in the wake of US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. During the meeting at the Kremlin, Putin described the attack on Iran as an unprovoked aggression for which there can be no justifications. The actions of Israel and US are illegitimate and violate international norms, he added. The Russian leader noted also that he was glad to see Araghchi in Moscow, saying that his visit would allow Russia and Iran to discuss these pressing issues and jointly think about the way out of the current situation. And on this topic, dear friends, let me remind you that several days ago there were reports on number of sources that Abbas Araghchi survived the assassination attempt that was carried out by Israeli assets. If true, then words of Russian president that he is glad to see Abbas Araghchi in Moscow definitely has much more weight in it than one may think. Obviously, negotiations, there was a little part of it that was open for journalists, for the public. Rest was behind the closed doors, and when one may only speculate what details were discussed between Russian leadership and Iranian leadership. There was not just Abbas Araghchi, but entire delegation of Iranian officials. My guess, if you ask, my guess is that Russia would probably emphasize need for diplomacy and restraint, because I think personally that Iran can achieve much more with restraint right now than with their extreme level of escalation, which definitely can come if Iranian militaries will retaliate on US assets in a region. And well, we will see in upcoming days if what kind of effect this meeting in Moscow will have on next steps of Iranian leadership. I will just remind you that a number of high-ranking military officials in Iran several times already made statements that Iran will retaliate against the US because of these American strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure. But yet again, I think it is in the best interests of Iran and also region in general and the rest of the world to exercise restraint right now and avoid direct strikes on US assets, because that will be used by US as a reason to further escalate, right? And how US gonna escalate? They're gonna use their quite significant air force that is presented in the region, not just on the ground, but also on free aircraft carriers that's supposed to be not far away from Iran. One carrier is definitely in Mediterranean right now. Another two actually in western part of Indian Ocean, potentially in Arabian Sea. So therefore, there is a high risk that any retaliatory strike, direct, open retaliatory strike from Iran, will be used by U.S. administration for intensification of the bombing campaign, and that would not serve people of Iran or Iran's interests. Quite sure about it. Iran can retaliate with their other means, politically, diplomatically, and there are some other options also. Meanwhile, we already have reports that U.S. military base was attacked in Syria, and initially, number of sources reported that it was Iran that take action against these military bases, which is not true. At least I did not see any official statements from Iranian officials, from Iran's officials, or in Iranian media reporting. Most likely, U.S. base in Syria was attacked by local forces that maybe had some during the Assad government might have some cooperation with their IRGC advisors, and also one should keep in mind that there are Shiite militia forces that are operating in Iraq that can easily cross border with Syria, carried out strikes on U.S. assets, and then return to their bases in Iraq. News is there, dear friends, that there are not much details, but news is that U.S. military base in the Al-Hasaka province of Syria has been attacked, and originally this was reported by Iranian state agency, news agency Mehr. No details how successful this attack was or if there were any casualties among U.S. military personnel, but what we can say with certainty is that this was not Iran's direct retaliation. Otherwise, Iranian military leaders will say it openly. TASS news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that there is a new narrative, by the way, new false narrative that is created right before our eyes by Israeli and U.S. Political class and propaganda outlets. And this new narrative is that allegedly U.S. through intermediaries conveyed to Iran Israel's intention to end the conflict. And this is obviously false, by the way. This is a false narrative that we cannot trust. United States has asked Middle Eastern officials to convey to Iran that Israel is seeking speedy end to the conflict. The Wall Street Journal report, citing sources, according to paper, Israel continues to strike targets in Iran, but seeks to end the war. Tehran, their newspaper writes, faces a dangerous choice: either strike back at the US, risking expansion of their war, or return to nuclear talks with possible concessions. Israeli authorities expect Iran to agree to negotiations and stop enriching uranium. At the same time, Tel Aviv is ready to launch new strikes if Tehran continues to work on its nuclear program, the newspaper claims. And yet again, dear friends, this is a clearly new false narrative that will be pushed for a couple of days, I guess, as it was done in regards to previous negotiations between Washington and Tehran that was used basically by US officials and Israeli officials as a deception of a deception operation to cut off guard Iranian leadership, and many media outlets, including in Western ones, actually reported about it. And we clearly are in a situation when literally nothing whatsoever that comes out from Washington can be trusted by anybody. It's just the situation is that bad for White House and current administration there. But to give you additional arguments of what I'm saying is, let's take a look at this report in Russian media, RT to be more precise, that Netanyahu claims to have interesting intel on Iran's uranium. So there is another narrative, another false narrative. I mean, simultaneously, I mean, this deception operation that Israel and US and other collective US countries are engaged is quite a complex one, isn't it? Quite a complex one, and they are constantly lying, generating new and new false narratives. And well, this particular information is clearly attempt of Israeli side with the help of US administration and Western propaganda to basically create this new narrative based on which US might still in this war, even without Iran's retaliation. Because let's take a look at the information itself. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has claimed he has interesting intel on the location of Iran's enriched uranium. He made the remark following US airstrikes on Tehran's nuclear facilities in the Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Speaking to reporters during their briefing on Sunday, Netanyahu confirmed that Israel is aware of the location of Iran's 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, but refused to give further details. And you think what Netanyahu and Israeli Secret Service is going to do? They will, together with the US and British Secret Services, potentially with involvement of some other NATO member states, they will come up with their they already are creating actually a new false narrative that there is another locations which has to be struck by US because it's deep underground and Israel cannot do this on its own. And it's a 400 kilogram of enriched uranium, which is which can be used to build 10 atomic bombs. So therefore, this information cannot be ignored. We all know this is, textbook, isn't it, of the false narratives that are created by Israel or the US, and it is highly likely that if not today, tomorrow, Pat Hexed or someone else in US, among US officials, are going to come out and say that, well, Iran either have to give up its enriched uranium and transfer it to American side or Israeli side or IAEA or whomever, or they will take action again, right? So, and obviously, dear friends, this intensification, while Wall Street Journal is reporting that Israel allegedly is seeking the de-escalation, another false narrative is that, well, Israel is, knows where 400 kilograms of enriched uranium is, and they want to deal with this with the situation, isn't it? With help of US, obviously, with assistance. And this is clearly demonstrates that they are not about de-escalating anything. They are about further escalation and regime change, by the way, because it is clear that for Israel, regime changes are quite important. For certain groups in US also, because from statements that we are seeing in Washington, from the US propaganda, current one, it is becoming obvious that there are clearly certain very influential groups that would like to see regime change in Iran and to put their puppets in a government. And I have news on that that I will share with you in a minute's time. But there is also another force, globalists, right? And globalists and their allies in US, they are not about regime change necessarily. They are about provoking wider war in the Middle East on religious and ethnic lines, because they want navigation to be shut down in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait, so that they will harm China as much as they possibly can. Then they will force China to increase their level of dependence on Russia in terms of energy supplies towards the critical level, which is on its own is dangerous stuff for both countries, by the way, Russia and China, because extreme dependence on anything is creating problems, right? And I'm quite sure Western ruling class thinks that they have enough assets, either in China or in Russia, that once they will force China to be dependent, to increase its dependence on Russian energy towards a critical level, they will manage to derail relationships between the two countries, and then will force China to take military action to secure closest energy fields, closest oil fields and gas fields. And you think where these closest gas fields and oil fields are? It's Central Asia and Russia. So that's the plan, by the way. Collective West, Western ruling class, wants to get rid of competitors forever, and conducting quite complex operations on geopolitical scale, moving in that direction. I spoke about this quite a number of times. No need to get into details again. If you have a question, I will answer after this stream. But yes, there is a division inside the Western ruling class. One part is about regime change, and don't really bothers about provoking regional war. They want just to rob Iran as much as they can. And there is the other part, more influential one, I believe, under leadership of globalists, that are about wider war, not about regime change necessarily, but wider war. So let's see how the situation develops. But yet again, we are clearly in a situation where nothing that comes out from the collective West can be trusted whatsoever. Literally nothing. Interfax, meanwhile, is reporting that another Western propaganda outlet, New York Times, reported that Iran managed to remove more than 400 kilos of enriched uranium from nuclear facilities. So you see, by the way, this is a clearly narrative. Topic of this enriched uranium going to become one of the main talking points of the Western propaganda in upcoming days. So Iran removed all enriched uranium from its nuclear facilities before the US struck them. This was reported by New York Times, citing Israeli sources. Of course, Israeli sources. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran had 408.6 kilo of uranium U-2035 enriched to 60%. According to experts, this is almost 90% of a weapons grade level. With further enrichment, this amount can be used to produce up to 9 nuclear weapons. And this is the narrative that Western propaganda will push now. And they will use this topic of enriched uranium, obviously, to keep US in. So don't believe all these statements from US officials that this was just a one-time strike on Iran. They obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities, and therefore they are out of it now. It's all lies, by the way. It's all lies because, Trump's administration don't really care about people of US. They don't, obviously. But same time, they understand that actions that they are taking are increasingly unpopular, not just among Democrats and Democratic voters, by the way, first of all, but also among Republicans and people that actually supported Trump on the basis of MAGA ideology, to be focused more on US and to finally get rid of these forever wars. So they have to balance their act. These people that are in charge in US, right? So therefore, they just forced to pay attention to this development, and that's why they are repeating one after another that it was just one goal, and they have no intention to further get involved. But in reality, they do have attention to get involved further, and they are working together with Israelis and their allies to create a basement on which they will push next phase of propaganda and justification why they have to get involved further. Just mark my word, by the way, next several days, maybe weeks, this topic of 408 kilos of enriched uranium gonna be a big one. And you know what? Maybe, by the way, this thought just came to me that maybe during today's meeting between Russian president and the Iranian foreign minister, maybe Russian side would even propose to take this enriched uranium into Russia, so that collective West and Israel will have nothing to talk about. At least they would not be able to use this topic to lay the ground for further escalation. And maybe that will happen. We will find out. Meanwhile, Iran itself demanded Israel's nuclear facilities to be handed over to IAEA. So Iran insists on the transfer of Israeli nuclear facilities under the control of their International Atomic Energy Agency, excuse me, and demands immediate coercive measures by the UN Secretary Council against the United States and Israel, said Iran's president representative to the World Organization, Amir Said Iravani, to the UN, I guess, to the UN, Amir Said Iravani. And well, unfortunately, we can all be sure that Israel not gonna allow IAEA experts into its nuclear facilities. Israel is not even acknowledging that it has any nuclear facilities or nuclear program, peaceful or their military one, right? Or do they acknowledge peaceful one? They definitely don't acknowledge that they have nuclear weapons and military nuclear program. And it is good that Iran is talking about this. Recently, former Russian president Dmitry Medvedev also stated that Israel should be kept check due to its military nuclear program, and maybe friends of Iran will manage to not just make statements, but also to put some pressure on Israel to actually join non-proliferation treaty and to allow IAEA experts into its nuclear facilities. Maybe. And best way to go forward for the Middle East for a long-term sustainable peace is obviously to denuclearize Israel, to force Israel to get rid of its nuclear weapons. Because if Israel has nukes, why should not other countries be allowed to do so? I mean, where is the logic, right? Is Israel any better than any other country in the region? Of course not, right? Israel actually is the most dangerous country in the region. Literally, I mean, 10 times dangerous than all other countries combined. So if they have nukes, then why should not Iran or Turkey or Saudi Arabia or others have a nuke? So therefore, in accordance to non-proliferation treaty, no country in this world should become nuclear. All should be part of this treaty, and IAEA inspectors should be allowed, as long as this organization exists, to monitor nuclear facilities of Israel also. And I think there is at least slight chance that we might actually achieve some progress in this direction if collective West will fail in provoking regional war in the Middle East on a sectarian and their ethnic lines. And clearly Moscow and Beijing are very much engaged in diplomatic terms to avoid any further escalation in the region, because neither Moscow, neither Beijing can allow a regional war to be provoked in that part of the world. But meanwhile, on the topic of dishonesty of the U.S. leadership, by the way, and how they cannot be trusted whatsoever, not now, not anytime soon, we have this report that so-called Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, CIA, MI6, and Mossad Assad basically demands regime change in Iran and issues an ultimatum to Tehran, to Iranian officials. Maybe you have seen this video, by the way. I shared it on my Telegram and Twitter X page. And do you think this personality would issue ultimatums to Iranian leadership and will talk with the language of ultimatum without authorization from either of these terrorist organizations, CIA, MI6, or Mossad? Of course, he would not. So therefore, once again, man, don't trust no Western propaganda, and don't trust nothing that comes out of from Western so-called politicians. They are lying constantly. They are lying constantly. As I said, there is clearly, we have enough indicators to say that there is, seems like there is two most influential groups right now in the West, and Israel is included in the collective West. Two groups. One is more focused on regime change. That includes Israel, Zionists, and certain groups of neocons, and the Israeli lobby there. And there is other group that is led by globalists. That is for wider war in the region, regional war, to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and the Hormuz Strait. There is clearly these two groups, and they are pushing different narratives, seems like. And this statement of Reza Pahlavi clearly indicates to me this divide among Western so-called elites and the Western ruling class. But definitely he would not dare to talk to Iran with the language of ultimatums without authorization, and about regime change without authorization of CIA, MI6, or Mossad. This is just too obvious, isn't it? And meanwhile, when we have more and more indicators that the US is definitely not about de-escalating anything in the Middle East, we have statements from Vice President of US, J.D. Vance, who is also lying, by the way. On one hand, he's trying to defend Trump and saying that this was just a one-time strike on Iran and they have no plans for regime change. But on other hand, take a look at their actions, I mean, real policies. This Pahlavi, by the way, this Reza Pahlavi, he is in Washington, D.C. right now, isn't it? And J.D. Vance don't knows about it. Or J.D. Vance or whomever in U.S. administration really thinks that Pahlavi is an independent actor and takes no orders from CIA or MI6 or Mossad when to say what and how. Come on. But also, I want to highlight this news because, U.S. administration really is in a dark place when a vice president is forced to basically defend president of US while saying that Trump is not as dumb as previous US leaders. This is my interpretation, but basically that's what he said, that Trump is not dumb like previous leaders were. I mean, really, one might actually make good arguments that he is much worse, really much worse. But anyways, let's go through this news here. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has pushed back against comparison between his country's airstrike on Iran and previous American wars in the Middle East, claiming that this time Washington's actions are truly limited and rooted in national security objectives, not a drive for regime change. I mean, yet again, does he lies, by the way, while saying that this is not a drive for regime change? Of course he does. Otherwise, who give authorization to this Pahlavi to talk about regime change in Iran. And what's up with Netanyahu when he's talking about some 400 kilograms of uranium, enriched uranium in Iran, and he knows where these uranium are. One of the sources, by the way, reported that another location that Israel might name is also underground facility, and located some 900 meters below the ground or something like that. I saw yesterday that was one of the sources that was reporting about it, right? And so, and obviously, such a facility under such depth will require not just these bunker buster bombs that the US has already used against Iran, but something more powerful. And after all, it was Western media outlets, by the way, that were exercising possibility that US might actually use tactical nuke to destroy underground nuclear facilities of Iran. So we should keep all this stuff in mind while making assumptions on current developments, right? So obviously, J.D. Vance is lying, no doubts about that. In an interview with NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, Vance emphasized that we are not at war with Iran, we are at war with Iran's nuclear program. How dumb is that statement itself, by the way? They bombed their country, independent country, and they are saying that, we are not at war with Iran. I mean, this is insult to intelligence, by the way, of humanity. US committed act of war, and no one cares what J.D. Vance thinks. Was this a humanitarian action or not? It was an act of war, according to international laws, right? And that's how the entire world sees it. But he's claiming that they are in war with Iran's nuclear program, man. Okay, I was thinking that J.D. Vance was a little more smarter than he actually is. My mistake, my bad. But initially, by the way, he was making some adequate statements. But something happened to him. I don't know. Maybe some forces are blackmailing him too, as they do with Trump, because Trump's rhetoric has also changed dramatically, isn't it? Especially in last couple of weeks. Dramatically. He was never a smart person. We all knew that, right? But at least potentially he was listening to smart people and repeating what the smart people were saying. Time to time, at least. But last several weeks, by the way, Trump went absolutely wild. Well, I mean, you tell me what is your explanation of this dramatic sudden change, You don't see that such a change that often, isn't it? When it comes to highest level of officials. Anyways, let's go through some more news here. So yes, Vance is saying that US is at war with Iran, but no, US is not at war with Iran, but with Iran's nuclear program, describing their overnight strike as a very precise, very surgical operation that allegedly dismantled Tehran's nuclear capabilities. And by the way, once again, now US officials are saying that they obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities, right? But just let's take a little pause and see what they're gonna talk about in a couple of days' time, when they will all start pushing this narrative that there are some new nuclear facilities that they just learned about, where Iran is storing these 400 plus kilos of enriched uranium, and well, they have to strike again, That's what they're gonna do, isn't it? And that's why I'm saying maybe today Russian president offered Iran this off-ramp kind of, opportunity basically to transfer its this enriched uranium to Russia. And so collective West globalists would and the Zionists will have no opportunity to use topic of this enriched uranium for further escalation. That will be a smart move on Iran's part if they will move their enriched uranium in Russia or in China, by the way, for that matter, or in India if India will help with that. I don't know. Responding to the concerns that the United States could be drawn into another prolonged conflict, Vance said the difference lies in leadership. I certainly, and we have quote here, I certainly emphasize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. He said, we have no interest in a protracted conflict. We have no interest in the boots on the ground. He added, and he is lying again, by the way. He is lying again. And also a quote from his statements, the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents. And now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. And I mean, this is so laughable, isn't it? Probably Trump is the dumbest president US ever had, probably dumber than Bush, by the way, younger Bush, junior one. I think so. Let's be real. That's why he is using that primitive language, by the way, constantly. He cannot even write in a decent English, right? But anyways, this is the statements from J.D. Vance. Clearly, U.S. is in a dark place. U.S. Political class is in a dark place when they are justifying actions of current president by comparing him to previous ones and saying that, well, this one is not as dumb as previous ones were, and therefore, trust us. We know what to do, and crazy man. What Trump knows about national security objectives? Did Iran pose any imminent threat for US? None, literally none. Is US more safer now than before they attack Iran's nuclear facilities? Also no. So what Trump or J.D. Vance knows about national security of US, do they even care slightest? No, I don't think so. Meanwhile, dear friends, military hostilities continues between Iran and Israel. Today we had this reporter that I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page that Iranian air defense unit successfully destroyed an Israeli Hermes drone before it was able to carry out a strike operation. Also, and this is definitely not the first and not most likely not the last aerial asset of Israeli forces that were destroyed by Iran's air defense systems that presumably should not have any air defense systems left, right? According to statements of IDF, but somehow they're managing to shut down these drones and planes and so on. And I remind you, there are unconfirmed reports, by the way, that Iranian air defense systems shut down not one, not two, not even three, but 5 F-35 fifth-gen fighter jets. Let's take these reports with a pinch of salt because of the fog of war, but well, there is plenty of videos, by the way, on internet when at least the drones of IDF were destroyed, Israeli Air Force were destroyed. And right now on your screen, you can see fragments of this Hermes drone that was intercepted. Also, Iran used the Qadr-H ballistic missile for the first time in a strike on Israel on June 23rd, that is today, this morning. So Iran used the Qadr-H ballistic missile with a multiple warhead for the first time in an attack on Israel on Monday morning, said Iman Tajik, a spokesman for their Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, who was briefing on the progress of the Islamic Republic's military operation against Israel. And that's a quite interesting news. according to IDF, they almost destroyed all long-range capabilities of Iran, like 200 plus missile launchers, hundreds or thousands of missiles, and so on. And then, how come that Iran is deploying almost every other day now latest and latest generation of missiles that are then launched to strike as a retaliatory strike to neutralize military logistics, energy infrastructure of the Netanyahu's regime. So you see, dear friends, everything that comes out from the Israel or from the West should be taken with a mountain of salt, because they are just lying constantly. Constantly, by the way. Probably they are not even capable of saying the truth. And when it comes to this particular missile, well, quite interesting engineering solutions being adopted, I guess, while creating this weapon system, because I'm not sure there is any other country in this world that has let's say, medium range ballistic missiles with multiple warheads. You know, I don't know, and I'm not talking about Oreshnik, by the way. Oreshnik is a different type of missile, true medium range. It's a 5,000 kilometers plus. Nowadays, we due to Ukrainian crisis and now Middle Eastern crisis, we are just designating these missiles that are used as a shorter and medium range based on their range. Although official designation is a bit different, and only missiles that have about 5,000 kilometer range used to be called medium previously. Now I don't know, maybe these designations will actually stay, and some additional kind of explanations will be created, because formally Iran has like missiles that can reach 1,500 kilometer, 2,000 kilometer, which is barely can be called medium range, right? But anyways, quite interesting engineering solution was adopted in this missile. It's like if Russian Iskander missile had several warheads. Something to think about, isn't it? Maybe Russian side will also adopt this approach for its missiles, ballistic missiles or tactical missiles. Let's say, yes, this missile is a tactical one. Qadr H and all the other missiles that Iran has, I will call it tactical missiles. Anyways, this is topic for military experts, by the way. Meanwhile, TASS news agency, dear friends, is reporting that US did not warn Russia about strikes on Iran. So Washington did not warn Moscow about strikes on Iran. This was stated by head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Naryshkin. And one may ask, why should US told Russia about this operation? And well, my understanding is that reason why usually Moscow and Washington are informing about each other about deployment of strategic nuclear forces is that there would be no human error, and we would not end up in a full-scale nuclear exchange. And when 5, 6, 7, according to some reports, 12, even more strategic bombers are used in an operation, and that was the case. If we believe number of reports, there was deception operation on part of Pentagon when significant number of B-2 bombers take one path and they didn't turn off transponders, so they could be tracked and they fly towards Guam. And there was another group of 6 or 7 B-2 bombers that are actually participating in strikes on Iran. So I think this information is very important, and if true, then first of all, why would Naryshkin say US did not inform us if they did? But anyways, this information is definitely a dangerous one, because you can imagine reaction of Moscow when Russian military intelligence reported in the Kremlin that 15 or 20 B-2 bombers are simultaneously in air. What would be your reaction on that? Because you just don't know, isn't it? These bombers gonna fly which direction? Yes, there is a situation in the Middle East, but maybe they will use this situation as a deception to launch strike on you. So therefore, this is definitely big error in the judgment of Pentagon, in the judgment of Washington, if they did not report to Russian side about these attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities. TASS news agency is reporting that Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, commented also on escalation between US and Iran, and he said that US strikes on Iran will not affect Moscow-Washington dialogue. Quite a statement, isn't it? So US strikes on nuclear facilities in Iran will not affect their bilateral dialogue between Moscow and Washington, as these are independent processes. Russian presidential press secretary Dmitry Peskov explained to the journalists, and I definitely have some issues with this statement, because I don't know how to understand this phrase from Peskov. U.S. strikes on nuclear facilities in Iran will not affect bilateral relationships between or dialogue between Moscow and Washington, because there is nothing to be affected. That's what he means. Or he means that, despite the demonstration by Washington that they are using diplomacy as a deception constantly, Moscow, there are some people in Moscow, including Russian president, that believes that American leadership can be trusted. I don't know. I struggle to understand this statement of Peskov, but most likely, first explanation is correct one, and he meant that this escalation between US and Iran could not affect dialogue between Moscow and Washington, because Moscow already has no trust to anybody from US, and therefore, if there is nothing to be affected, probably this is the right explanation, because I cannot believe that president of Russia or anybody in his inner circle really thinks that either Trump or anyone from his administration can be trusted. I mean, this cannot be true, right? And once again, dear friends, let me remind you a very important statement that former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council made in regards to US attacks on Iran. I mentioned this commentary from Medvedev this morning, but I think this is something that definitely worth our attention. Medvedev lists Trump's achievements after bombing Iran. First is Iran's enrichment will continue. It's a matter of principle at this point, I guess, for Tehran to continue this program, not to bow down. The US drawn into a new conflict with the prospect of the ground operation, which is also true. There is certainly possibilities, scenarios can be seen in which US is deploying, together with other NATO member states, its ground forces, special forces first, and then ground forces into Iran. That might happen, and that would be a grave mistake on part of Washington, of course. Also, another point, absolute majority of countries are against actions of Israel and US, which is also true. Vast majority of this world is against, and humanity is against what Israel and US are doing. Trump, who came as a peacemaker president, started a new war for US, which is also true. And I'm monitoring many channels, by the way. I'm subscribed there. Probably we all are subscribed to many channels, same channels. And disappointment among people that were actively supporting Trump is colossal. I mean, many people are just shocked, and they are not even trying to hide this. Why should they? They are really disappointed. Public figures, and take a look at the commentaries, by the way. I mean, there is huge disappointment in US, and I can understand why. But to continue on the comments of Medvedev, he then went to say that there are countries ready to directly supply Iran with their nuclear weapons. And by the way, Medvedev is time to time he does make some very strong statements. He's kind of trolling Western ruling class, some other elements that he might have some beef with. And some may argue that he is expressing his personal opinions, right? And in many cases, probably that's exactly what is happening. But I think this commentary is a much more serious one. This is not a trolling, because yet again, I mean, Dmitry Medvedev is not just former Russian president, but he is a current deputy chairman of the Security Council. He is a high-ranking official, and I don't think this level of official will say for no reason that there are countries ready to directly supply Iran with the nuclear weapons. And theoretically speaking, we can mention 4 countries, right, that are either friends of Iran or can ally with Iran. Russia, which is a strategical partner for Iran. I don't think Russian leadership is even considering transferring nuclear weapons to anybody. So, it's definitely not Russia. Another one is China, that theoretically can be considered, but this is not China for sure. I don't think Beijing will consider anything like that, like Moscow will not. But there is another 2 countries left. One is Pakistan, and another one is North Korea. And in certain circumstances, theoretically speaking, both these countries can provide Iran with their, let's say, nuclear umbrella. And if I guess already certain information is known among high-ranking officials worldwide, at least in leading members of their, among elites of their political elites of the leading countries or biggest countries, how should I say? Otherwise, why would Dmitry Medvedev even spoke about this topic? Isn't it? So maybe this is something that Western elites should think about, because I don't know about Pakistan, but North Korea, by the way, I mean, they clearly don't give a damn about Western ruling class whatsoever. I mean, not even for a second, right? And they are ready to fight. So who knows? I remember recent visit of Shoigu, former defense minister of Russian Federation, and their secretary of the Security Council, into North Korea. And he visited North Korea like a couple of days after Israel began targeting Iran, isn't it? And who knows what North Korean leadership and Shoigu discuss. So you see, there is many connections between the potential connections between the news that on the surface may not seem connected with each other. Like this statement of Dmitry Medvedev and recent visit of his colleague secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation to North Korea. So yes, something is definitely happening, and we should pay attention to it. And dear friends, before I touch to other topics that are not directly, at least, connected with the Middle East, let me check right now some Telegram channels for potential breaking news about Middle East, and so, well, I can see straight away. Major General Mousavi of Iran stated that Netanyahu's punishment will continue until he brings them to their until Iran brings them to their knees and forces them to surrender. Without a doubt, we will take action against America for attacking our country. Major General Mousavi also stated, well, as I said, by the way, I mean, statements are statements, but I think Iran has much better chances to use some other means, political means, because yet again, Iran is not alone. Iran is not alone. Iran is in a very difficult situation. We all understand that, but why should Iran help its enemies, right? Washington is waiting for Iran's retaliation so that they will step up this escalation and their involvement in this war against Iran. So why should Tehran make it easier for Washington to act on its plans, right? And not just for Washington, but to globalist, neocons, Zionists, and so on. So clever policies are needed, and that's what I want to say. Also, we have statements from Lewitt, press secretary of the Trump, and she's bragging about destroying, obliterating Iran's nuclear program. Okay, we will see how in a few days' time she will start talk about her new nuclear facilities that they just discovered, and they will begin justifying potential additional strikes of US and that kind of stuff. Well, Trump again is posting some stuff. He's attacking US officials that dare to criticize him, and his attacks on Iran, or US's attacks on Iran. And Lewitt again, press secretary of US president, is saying that, and this is quote, "We are safer today because of the president's bold action preventing nuclear conflict." I mean, wow, she is something, isn't it? I mean, press secretary should be a little more intelligent, for God's sake. What is she saying? That US is safer now than before attacking Iran? What the hell, man? And people in US gonna buy this nonsense? And she, as I said, by the way, she also said that Iran's nuclear sites completely obliterated there. Yeah, of course. Lewitt makes their case for a regime change in Iran if regime refuses a peaceful solution. Okay, we should not, and this is quote, we should not, why should not the Iranian people take away the power of this incredibly violent regime? She is asking, claims that Trump still interested and engaging a diplomatic solution. Yes, of course. I mean, these statements from US does make no sense, dear friends, nowadays. And this is really unfortunate and extremely dangerous, isn't it? That nothing that is said by US officials can be trusted. Literally nothing. I mean, they are lying so much and constantly. I mean, so often that you just cannot trust anything that they say. Let me check for some more news, dear friends. Trump went to threaten oil producing countries in his tweet on True Social. Everyone, and this is his tweet, by the way, everyone keep oil prices down. I'm watching. You are playing right into the hands of their enemy. Don't do it. Holy moly, man. Who is he? Who is he threatening that he is watching? Is he talking about US companies or oil producing countries, sir, in the Middle East that are basically hostages of US or the collective West, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar? Although Qatar is obviously major LNG exporter, but still, who is he threatening? By the way, anyways, I think I shared quite a lot of news about Middle Eastern developments. Let's go through some other news too, dear friends, now. And then some 20-30 minutes Q&A, community chat. If there will be, any interest of community to exchange opinions. And so RIA Novosti is reporting that Serbian military-industrial complex increases export of military products to Ukraine, according to Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. This is second time in last several weeks when Foreign Intelligence Service is highlighting this issue in its statements. According to information received by Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation, Ukrainian military is very grateful to Serbian manufacturers of weapons and munition for their contribution to maintain the combat capability of the Ukrainian armed forces. In Kiev, they note that Serbian military-industrial complex enterprises, despite their increasing pressure on Belgrade from Moscow, are increasing their export of military products to the zone of confrontation between the collective West and Russia. In many ways, this became possible due to the use of indirect supply schemes. The Department of Foreign Intelligence Service has stated, and well, dear friends, no. And right now, dear friends, there was a super chat on Rumble. The Modus Cutter, thank you very much for your super chatter. Comment is thanks for your honest reporting. Thank you for your support and attention. Truly grateful. And dear friends, as I said, this is our second time SVR is reporting about involvement of Serbia's military-industrial complex in weapons and munition supplies to Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, and this is really sad development because we are talking about Serbia, by the way. And obviously, this information will not influence attitude that we have towards Serbia or the Serbian people. They are our brothers and sisters, and there will always be. And this will not change. But relationships between Moscow and Belgrade, between political leadership of Russia and the current leadership of Serbia, probably will begin deteriorating rapidly in upcoming weeks and months, and maybe even years, because seems like Serbian leadership is not willing to deal with this issue. And maybe they are benefiting from it, by the way. When Russian SVR made such a information public first time, President of Serbia, Vucic, made a statement that he will take care of issue and he will order companies not to be engaged in any way, shape, or form in weapons or munition supplies to Ukraine. But seems like he did nothing to fulfill his own statement. And this is just too bad, man. Just too bad. What can I say? Unfortunate, but for many people in this world, money is everything, right? Many people in this world are worshipping money, and they have no principles, no decency, no dignity, no nothing that we respect. Good humans, right? And we are good humans, by the way. I want to believe. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Russian president stated that West continues to supply weapons to Ukraine, participating in a conflict. A number of Western politicians continue to send weapons, not politicians necessarily, number of Western countries actually, continues to send weapons and money to Kyiv regime, essentially as a direct participants in the conflict, said Russian President Vladimir Putin. We cannot help but be concerned that the number of Western politicians continue to hatch plans to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia, continue to send weapons and money to today's Kyiv regime, provide military technical and intelligence support, essentially as direct participants in the conflict. And I believe, according to some reports on Telegram channels, by the way, Russian president used word vragi, which is enemies. And I was a bit surprised because Russian president rarely uses that strong language. And I have to see his statements in Russian. I mean, detailed statement, not a media interpretation. But if correct, if he used the word "ragi," "nashi vragi" or "our enemies," well, that's quite a change in the tune, I will argue, in the statements of Russian president, and maybe also a warning to all those so-called politicians in the West and their Western countries or the NATO countries that are involved in this proxy war against Russia directly. And also, Russian president mentioned during today's statement when he was having a meeting with students of Russian military academies, he stated that Oreshnik has proven itself well in a combat condition. So Russian President Vladimir Putin said that the Oreshnik has proven itself very well in a combat condition. Serial production of the latest medium-range missile system Oreshnik, which has proven itself very well in the combat conditions, is underway. And yet again, maybe this is also a warning, or should be taken as a warning by all sorts of Russian enemies, because, Oreshnik today probably is the most lethal weapon system in existence that are not nuclear. Nowadays, there are too much talk about US bunker busting bombs, and Western propaganda, by the way, is claiming and misleading public while saying that weapon system is the most powerful non-nuclear weapon in this world, which is not true, by the way. Russia actually has a much more powerful bomb, and also Russia has a Oreshnik missile system, which can be in both variations, I believe, nuclear and non-nuclear. And in non-nuclear configuration, well, Oreshnik's warheads, by the way, probably can penetrate most deepest underground facilities that are out there in existence because of their hypersonic speed and their, incredible capabilities. And we have seen some videos, isn't it? We have seen some videos when Oreshnik was demonstrated. I wonder how many of these systems already being built and introduced to the Russian army. I hope dozens and dozens of these systems are already in Russian military's hands. And if needed, they can do the job. We all already know that. RT is also reporting that Russia strikes targets in the Kyiv region. The Russian military carried out a large strike on a number of Ukrainian military facilities in the Kyiv region overnight. Russian Defense Ministry reported, the ministry stated that the attack was conducted using high-precision weapons and unmanned aerial vehicles. The strikes targeted Ukraine's military industrial enterprises as well as their infrastructure at their military airfield and their arsenal of mine torpedo weapons on the Ukrainian Navy. There was reports, by the way, about Russian strikes, large-scale and successful strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime or Zelensky's regime in the Kiev region, also Odessa region was mentioned there. And there are several other areas, by the way, where training ground of Kiev regime's forces were targeted, and Kiev regime suffered heavy losses as a result of these strikes. And on topic of special military operation, dear friends, time to time I'm receiving complaints, sort of, from members of our community. Why am I not sharing detailed information about special military operation as other channels do? And well, by the way, they are usually pointing to military channels. And what can I say, dear friends? I'm not military channel. I'm not military expert. I never pretend to be one, right? I'm sharing news that, in my personal opinion, are important, right? And I'm sharing my commentary on that. I have no military channel there, dear friends, to go into extreme details when it comes to day-to-day developments on the line of contact. There are plenty of military channels, isn't it, out there? And they are focused exactly on that. I have a news channel, and my main goal is to provide as much news, as much important news on major developments as I can from a Russian or pro-Russian perspective, because I'm also commenting this news, right? And my hope is that I'm bringing something good to the table, right? That's all. I have said many times before that I'm not military channel, and it still surprises me when I see complain that why you don't talk about this and that in more detail, because format of my programs are different. That's it. But I do share quite a lot of information about special military operation, by the way, isn't it? I mean, no one can say that I don't share major news about developments on line of contact. I always do on daily basis, not just in my video updates, but also on my Telegram and Twitter X page. And if one is not subscribed to my Telegram and Twitter X page, then is it my fault? I don't think so, isn't it? Anyways, let's continue. And let me, dear friends, share with you this video, for example, of Russian airstrike on concentration of military of the Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky in Sumy region, for example. I shared this video on my Telegram channel and Twitter X page. Quite impressive video, by the way. Explosion is quite something. Let's watch it again. Wow. I mean, this shockwave is quite impressive. This is FAB 3000 bomb, allegedly, that was dropped by Russian Air Force on enemy concentration in the Sumy region, where Russian armed forces are creating a buffer zone. Well, impressive, isn't it? These weapons are becoming more and more terrifying. They always were, but nowadays these weapons are definitely something. Sometimes you think these weapons are from, I don't know, some sci-fi movie or something. Also, dear friends, few more news. RT is reporting that US senator threatens India, China, and Russia again over Ukraine. And you guess who this senator is? Lindsey Graham. So, US Senator Lindsey Graham is doubling down on a sanctions bill that would impose penalties on India, China, and Russia for their alleged actions in for furthering their Ukraine conflict. The senator sanctioning Russia Act of 2025 was introduced in the US Senate in April and would place significant tariffs on goods and services exported by countries that buy oil, natural gas, uranium, and their petroleum products originating from Russia. I've got 84 co-sponsors for a Russian sanctions bill that is in an economic bunker buster against China, India, and Russia for Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. When this criminal is talking about invasions and brutality, I mean, this is just shame, by the way. Does he forget that he's a U.S. senator? How many million people died just in the last couple of decades due to invasions of U.S., due to military actions of the U.S. and terrorist actions of the U.S., unprovoked one, by the way. Russia now is engaged in a special military operation that was provoked by the West intentionally, absolutely, right? But did Libya provoke US? Did Iraq provoke US? Did they attack US or bring their military installation to US borders? No. Did Syria bring its military installations to US borders and threaten? No. And this criminal is talking about invasion of other countries. I mean, unbelievable, man. And you know what? I don't know if there is any level-headed individual left in Washington. So therefore, probably at one point, current administration of US will go ahead with this additional sanctions package against Russia, and not just against Russia, but also other countries that are cooperating with Russia in economical, political, and other directions. And I think this is going to be devastating move for US itself, because they are proposing to sanction Russian allies, Russian trade partners, with 500% tariffs. And among Russian trade partners are China and India, big ones, right? And also many others, by the way. Turkey, Indonesia, I mean, many. And you guessed which country in this world is one of the main importers of the goods from all these friends of Russia. It's US, by the way. And it's going to be US citizens that will either lose access to certain goods that are coming from these countries, or will have to pay like 500% more if Washington will go ahead with these 500% tariffs. So who is this idiot Lindsey Graham is threatening, really? But yet again, I mean, that's the level of intellect among these people, by the way. I mean, what can I say? You know? Meanwhile, very interesting news and important one, I believe, that I shared also on my Telegram and Twitter X page, that Russian Navy warship has openly escorted tankers of the so-called Shadow Fleet through the English Channel for the first time. According to maritime analyst Mark Douglas of Starboard Maritime Intelligence Ltd, automatic identification systems data from June 16 showed coordinated movement between the corvette Boyki and the two sanctioned tankers, the Selva and the Sierra. The country was this convoy of Russian battleship and these tankers was heading to Russian port, presumably to load the oil. And dear friend, you remember that I predicted that due to NATO's illegal and hostile actions against Russia, including in the Baltic Sea, well, Moscow will have no option but to take some retaliatory steps. And that's exactly what happened, including sending warships to escort the vessels or the convoys of the vessels that are coming in and out of Russian Baltic ports. And that's exactly what is happening. That's exactly what is happening. And I mean, let's hope no NATO country leadership will dare to, uh, you know, authorize provocation against these convoys, because these Russian battleships, they're not going to hesitate. They will take action, and that is and because we all understand that Western ruling class is led by criminals, basically. There is a high risk, obviously, there is a high risk that Baltic Sea may be one of the areas where direct conflict between Russia and NATO member states may erupt due to, yet again, irresponsible criminal behavior and orders of their globalist and globalist controlled regimes there in Europe, UK, France, Germany, Poland, others. So, also something to keep in mind, that Russia is now escorting convoys with the battleships. Interesting. And also, dear friends, we have this report, and I will end the news segment on that Hungary and Slovakia prevented the adoption of their 18th package of EU sanctions against Russia, which is good, by the way. Eventually, I guess globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe will pressure Bratislava and Budapest to agree on this 18th package of sanctions, most likely, as they did it during the previous 17 sanctions packages. But it is good to see that at least these two countries are trying to give some fight, Okay, we appreciate that, And dear friends, I guess this is it for a news segment. And let's go for a little chat now. I will go through some comments and the questions, and as always, dear friends, it will be much easier for me to notice the question if there is either capital Q before sentence or entire sentence is in capital letters. That way I will I will notice it easier. And so let's see if there is any questions. I hope you find the news segment interesting, dear friends, and let me also notice, if I may, that if you like my work, if we want to see further development of this project, please consider to support, because without your support, these channels would not exist. And if you are in a position to support, you can do it through several means, either donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, by subscribing to my Patreon page, where I have quite a number of extra content on regular basis. Also, there is a crypto, and yes, Rumble also can be used for support. You can use super chat or round feature there on Rumble. Become how it called, man, premium subscriber. And yeah, there are several means, by the way. Links are on this video in description box, and after 3 months I will put also I will pin also a comment with the links. And let's read this commentary. Kubas is commenting the West can't afford for Iran to fully join BRICS Plus. China, Russia, and Iran are outside of the West control. If Iran joins world trade like it is, America becomes obsolete. Thank you for your opinion, Kubas. There is many reasons why West has issues with Iran, and what you have commented there definitely can be one of those reasons. And it's not just Iran, isn't it? West is confronting BRICS or the emerging multipolar world because they are afraid, by the way, to lose relevance, because they are losing relevance right now and they are losing grip on this world. With the emergence of more and more economies, with the success of more and more economies in this world and the emergence of a multipolar world, obviously influence of the Western ruling class is failing, and they are not used to it, isn't it? For the last 300 to 500 years, by the way, for the last 300 to 500 years, they were ruling this world almost entirely, and now they are losing this grip, and they are hysterical about it, right? And they are, more often they are behaving extremely irresponsibly, and we all seeing the results of that. That is the reason why I'm saying that Western ruling class is existential threat for humanity, because they are. I strongly believe in that. Questions. A question from Nidish Kumar Levan. Any BlackRock owned companies in Serbia? This is really weird. I don't think it's about money. Maybe they want to attack Serbia again, as some Balkan countries want to join EU. Serbia don't want her. I don't know about the level of BlackRock's involvement in the Serbian military-industrial complex or in economy in general, but I think Serbian leadership, by the way, that is playing all sides. Vucic demonstrated many, not just once or twice, that he is playing all sides, and therefore this type of people usually can be forced to do something that they might not necessarily want to do, but in order to maintain their relevance, they can be pressed. And I think that's what Western ruling class did, by the way. They press current leadership of Serbia to basically ignore involvement of Serbian military industrial complex in indirectly arming Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. And Russian Foreign Intelligence Service did not say that Serbian companies directly are transferring weapons to Kiev regime. Different shims are used, the fragments of the weapon systems being transferred to other countries, and then those fragments or weapons being assembled in these other countries, in Czech Republic, in Bulgaria, in some others, and then delivered to Ukraine. But Serbia's involvement, Serbia's military-industrial complex role is great in this in this process, and that's why already second time Russian Foreign Intelligence Service is pointing out on that. Will Vucic change anything? I don't think so. I was hoping that after first time that Russian Foreign Intelligence Service highlighted this topic, when Vucic made a statement that he will take care of the issue, I was hoping that he will, although I had some doubts about it, and now I have no doubts. Enough time has passed, and Vucic did nothing. It is what it is. Questions. This is something new, isn't it? I just come up with this idea, like right before stream, to devote some, I don't know, sometimes it might be 15 minutes, sometimes like 30 minutes during these live streams on the working days or work days from Monday to Friday. And then, we can exchange opinions or something. You can share breaking news, sir, and I might notice it straight away. Because there was a quite sometimes situations when I'm on air reporting about news, and exactly at that time something is happening, something that is important, and I could not know about it because I'm on air. I'm unable to check media outlets same time, isn't it? So let's do this like 15, 20, 30 minute community chats after live streams. And I will maintain big community chat for Sundays. Jorish is asking, do you think the USA ruling elite will ever help its own people? I guess question is quite rhetoric, because I see irony in your question. Not now, and not anytime soon. In my personal opinion, I spoke about it a few times before, and probably many members of our community will agree with me. When Soviet Union collapsed, what happened is that economies of former Soviet Republic began undergoing transformation, very painful process, by the way, and that's why 90s are dark times for every Soviet Republic, exactly because of this transformation, right? And their economical situation become step by step better and better from 2000s, right? And continues to improve. That is the case in Russia, for example, right? And also in Georgia. And well, while our economies were undergoing this painful transformation to adapt to the new realities, U.S. Economical system didn't change, isn't it? And it still continues to be as focused on a military-industrial complex as it was during the Cold War, when there is no objective need to have such an economy, when basically main force in it is a military-industrial complex, right? And what happened is U.S. elites refused to go through this painful process of reforms, right? They maintained their military-industrial complex, and now they are in a situation when, even if they are realizing that they have to make some changes, they are afraid to do anything, because their political career are going to be finished on that. Because to reform U.S. economy, that means thousands of companies, by the way, gonna either go bankrupt or shut down, or uh, or try their best to find their place on the market without military orders, without orders from Pentagon, right? And it's not going to be easy, by the way. Thousands of companies, former Soviet factories and manufacturing plants, just go bankrupt, or was shut down, because they failed to adapt to new realities, right? To produce civilian goods only, or mainly civilian goods, right? And because of this rogue economical system that is in US, which tries to defend itself, isn't it? Military industrial complex is tries to defend itself, because they know they are problem. They are the problem for US, and they are buying up all these senators and congressmen and governors in all over the US, and local authorities. They are constantly financing all sorts of election campaigns on all sides, by the way, to have influence on the political life of US, so that no one would dare seriously, on a serious level, to basically not just encourage but to actually start reforms in US economy. And while the situation is like that, by the way, how is it even theoretically possible that ordinary US citizens will manage to beat this corrupt system and elect truly people's representatives, either on the local levels or on the federal levels? Is it even theoretically possible? No, it's just not possible. So that is the answer on your question. Until US will undergo reforms, very painful, it's going to be very painful, but it is absolutely necessary. Until US will reform its economical system, US citizens, US will never have a government that will actually care about its own citizens. It is what it is. It's just it's on the surface, really, isn't it? Not that difficult stuff to understand, but I guess majority of Americans don't want to face the reality, and they are just ignoring that their system is corrupt, and that system is a main obstacle for the future of US and their society there. Also, Nitish Kumar is asking, Levan, do you know what's going on between Cambodia and Thailand at the border? Do you have any idea? No, I just know that there was some skirmishes, isn't it? Borderline skirmishes. At one point, both sides were increasing their military presence, but about 2-3 days ago, I saw a report that sides kind of reach agreement to de-escalate and demilitarize borderline area. So that's all I read or know about it currently. I should pay more attention to these developments, but I don't know much more than I already said. I don't know. I would not be surprised if U.S. Secret Services are engaged there, involved there again, because whenever something dodgy is happening in this world, usually it's either British Secret Services involved, either U.S. Secret Services involved. Something like that is happening, isn't it? But I don't know in details what is happening between these countries. Sandy Brown is asking, do you think Putin still trusts Trump? I don't think so. No, it's not possible. Probably on a human level, there was a hope on part of Putin that maybe under new administration, Moscow and Washington will manage to at least de-escalate the relationships, right? And find some common ground there on some directions. I think there was such a hope, by the way, and I was hoping for that also. I mean, I even apologize for that, but I was mistaken. Initially, my instinct was correct when I was saying that all these talks between Moscow and Washington is meaningless, just a waste of time. And then, because I'm a human and I want to see the escalation, right? I failed to this hope that maybe my skepticism is just mistaken, and maybe there is a truly possibility to de-escalate between Washington and between Moscow and Washington. But no, man, this hope was baseless, basically. It's a human error on my part, and it was a human error on part of everybody who also believed that maybe under Trump's leadership, our two countries would manage to, you know, um, at least little bit, but improve the relationship, right? But yet again, we are humans, right? And we do make these human errors. We are not computers of sort, isn't it? So my answer is no. I don't think for even a second that Russian president really believes that Trump can be trusted on anything. I don't think so. At this point, by the way, I mean, even Trump probably has no doubts that he cannot be trusted by nobody because he destroyed. He never had a great record, right? Great track record. He never was the most trustworthy person, but he definitely destroyed his reputation absolutely on absolute scales in last month or two since the beginning of Washington, talks between Washington and Tehran on nuclear deal, because it was really revealed, isn't it, that from very beginning Trump and his administration were engaged in a deception operation with their Israeli leadership to cut off guard Iran, and unfortunately they succeed in that, right? Seems like many people in Iran's leadership truly believed that the US was serious. US leadership was serious about the escalation. They were proposing some compromise solutions, and then Israel struck on Iran, and like after US also get engaged in these strikes. So you know. And by the way, we should also keep in mind that several days before US struck these nuclear facilities in Iran, Trump himself said that, well, there is a 2 weeks, isn't it, for negotiations, let's negotiate. He was lying again. He was using diplomacy as a deception again. So I don't think it is reasonable for anybody in this world to trust anyone from US administration. JC Denton is commenting. It seems to me that West is being destroyed from within on a purpose, while it's being used to destroy the rest of the world outside. But who benefits then? Well, Western ruling class, dear friends. Globalists, they do benefit from this. Globalists, neocons, they have a great benefits from what is happening in this world, isn't it? Globalists, because they are confronting emerging multipolar world while sacrificing Western world, because I guess they believe that they can achieve success. They can defeat the rest of the world, right? And they don't care what is going to be cost for ordinary citizens of Western countries. And the leadership of in Brussels, political, leadership of EU, for example, that is clearly controlled by the globalist forces, right? And when I say globalists, and people may ask, who are the globalists? Well, in my understanding, a leading force behind the globalist movement is the British royal family and British aristocracy. And aristocracy in continental Europe, royal families and aristocracy, right? That's a leading force behind the globalists, because, dear friends, you tell me which empire benefited the most from its expansion in last 300 to 500 years. UK and European monarchies, right? France may no longer be monarchy, but while even Fifth Republic, so-called, was quite an empire, isn't it? And had quite imperialistic ambitions. So I think behind the globalists, we should see British royal family, British aristocracy, first of all, most powerful group there, and also aristocracies in European soil. That's my understanding of their situation. And they have puppets, right? They have tools in a place, different secret organizations, secret societies, so-called, and they are basically through secret societies, through intelligence services, controlling political class all over the Europe, right? Including in Brussels. And they can push for whatever agenda they think are necessary for them to achieve their main goal, which is to maintain their relevance on geopolitical scale, which cannot happen if development of multipolar world continues. So therefore, in this fight against multipolar world, they are sacrificing their own citizens. Yes, it's true. But still, their hope is that they're gonna emerge victorious in this war against the rest of the humanity, and therefore, I don't think they really care about ordinary citizens of UK, for example, or Germany or France. They never really cared about people, by the way, because these royal families and their so-called aristocracies are out of touch with their real life for centuries and centuries. And these old generations and generations grow up in a very different world, by the way, right? They have no care about you and me and anyone else on this planet. We live in one world, they live in another. So that's who benefits, by the way. And many people are making a huge mistake while thinking that, well, British royal family and British aristocracy is just irrelevant, it's just a formality. No, it's not the case, by the way. They are extremely powerful, if you ask me. So that's who benefits, dear friends. That's who benefits. And I think we can end this Q&A part now. Smoky Sally is commenting: U.S. military-industrial complex and the government needs Russia to be their big enemy to keep U.S. workforce economy thriving. So there is no chance that the U.S. will reform anything. Too many U.S. jobs totally rely on this. I agree with you, Sally, absolutely. I'm on the same page. And you explained this in a much better way than I did. Sorry, dear friends, my English is not perfect. And there are so many times I finding myself in a situation when there is so much more to say, to better explain what I want to say. But my English is just not there yet. Hopefully I will get there, right? And I will improve language well enough so that I will talk a little better. But for now, I'm trying my best to be as informative as I can. But yes, I agree with you, Sally, absolutely on the same page. They cannot reform, and that's why they are keeping, they are creating these forever wars and enemies here and there to justify existence of this corrupt system in US. I agree with you 100%. Nitish Kumar is also commenting: Levan, most of European countries' royalties are still active. Absolutely agree with you. absolutely. Some people do make mistake that they think this royal families and this aristocracy is just a kind of tourist attraction, but in reality they still rule, by the way, and they still pulling the triggers, pulling the strings. Absolutely. you know they are good in deception, isn't it? They are good in deception, and that's why even in UK probably majority of people think that, well, royal family or the aristocracy, oh, they do nothing, they're just kind of tradition, and that's all. While in reality it's not like that. They are extremely powerful. And dear friends, let's finalize this stream on that. Thank you all for your attention, for your support. Hopefully, I was informative enough, and hopefully, this second live stream I was much more calm than this morning one. Several members of our community criticize me justly. That time to time I might be just too emotional, and this is not good. And I agree with that. I'm gonna try my best to be as calm as I can. So yes, thank you all, dear friends. Thank you all for your attention, for your support. Have a peaceful day, wonderful day. Take care, and see you tomorrow. Bye for now.